Woo! Woo! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Show. I am your host, Robbie Haytayan. Joined with me are my three amazing co-hosts. You guys know this crew by now: Justin Lowe, Seamus Zarlingo, and Nick Franco. Guys, the Boston Celtics fall victim to yet another early season loss, this time in the road at the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan, guys, 119-113. The Boston Celtics falling to 0-3. When was the last time the Celtics started a season 0-3, you might ask? Well, the answer is the 2013-2014 NBA season. A Boston Celtics team that included Avery Bradley, Jeff Green, Kelly Olynyk, some real Celtics throwback players, guys. However, we do have some current day Celtics to talk about because, again, the Celtics are in uncharted territory. I know it's early. However, again, 12 years since the Celtics have started a season this poor, 0-3. So, guys, you know the drill here. Your initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways as my AirPod falls out there from the Celtics. I mean, are we going to call it an ugly loss? Because I'm ready to call it another ugly loss.
Yeah, things go into an ugly loss. There were certainly pretty moments tonight. I thought the Celtics, specifically in that first half, more so specifically in that first quarter, came out really, really well. They actually let their defense dictate their offense. They were getting after it defensively, getting stops, getting steals, running in transition, getting defensive rebounds, and that's exactly where the Celtics fell apart. More towards that back half of that second quarter and into the third quarter, where Detroit was kind of able to really control the game from there. Celtics missed some shots in the second half. Detroit were getting stops. They dominated the paint tonight. They dominated the offensive glass tonight. They out-rebounded the Celtics 65-52, 18 offensive rebounds, leading to 30 second chance points to Boston's just 19. Some people a little bitter, going to circle the free throw number, but Celtics, you should not be awarded for giving up these offensive rebounds. And that's been a story throughout these 7 games, the first 3 regular season, and really all 4 preseason games. We saw this one constant factor, guys: the rebounding. The rebounding is a major issue. Franco brought up the size of this team in I believe it was the Cleveland game. The size of this team, and he kind of went on and talked about the mediocre play that we are probably about to see. Well, I hate to talk like this only 3 games in, because I am a believer in the Celtics giving them time and figuring it out. But when it comes to rebounding and stuff like that, it's oh boy, do I want to say mind-boggling.
Are we doing boys? That? Are we there?
We're going to have a trademark on it at some point, so we might as well keep on using it.
Oh, when we use mind-boggling, that's when the rock bottom. That's when rock bottom. It's like,
rock bottom. We'll trademark that too. When?
Yeah. No, rock bottom. Every time I hear that phrase, though, it's like never. No. Nobody bring that up. Nobody bring that up. Rock bottom. This is not rock bottom, folks.
Like,
this is not rock bottom. Mind-boggling, sure. Rock bottom, not quite.
Your best rock bottom. You're 0-3 with your franchise player sitting on the bench with a ruptured Achilles. That is probably pretty low on the scale. But I will say, trying to be a little bit optimistic, there were a lot of positives tonight. But in terms of we're 0-3. You can't nitpick these positives. You kind of have to look at reality in the mirror and kind of just tell it as it is. Right now, it's a very kind of dark time to be a Celtic fan. But the assist counts are down 17 tonight. The ball wasn't popping. The ball isn't popping on offense. Celtics haven't gotten really anything going. A lot of ISO-heavy basketball, and you're missing your best ISO-heavy player in Jason Tatum, who's also your best playmaker. Some might say that this is probably going as expected. If the Celtics are able to clean up the glass, though, in that first quarter, the Celtics had control of the glass. They were getting defensive rebounds. They were closing out defensive possessions, and they were turning that into phenomenal offensive possessions and a lot of fast break points. They had 16 tonight. They did trail by 5 in that category, but 16 of those fast break points tonight, and a lot of those came in the first quarter. The Celtics were out and running, and that's something that they do so well when they rebound. When they do rebound, we've seen glimpses in all 7 games in 3 here in the regular season at what the Celtics team could be. The problem is, it is very rare the Celtics acquire a defensive rebound. So, when you're giving up those offensive rebounds and those second chance opportunities, especially against really good teams like Detroit, like New York, and honestly, like Philly, Edgecombe and Maxey killed us in transition because we in the second chance points because we were unable to get rebounds on either end. Rebound, fellas. We're probably going to be talking about this 24 hours from now when we're talking about the result of the Pelicans and Celtics game. But tonight, for me, the defensive rebounds. I sound like a broken record. I've said it all 3 games, even in the preseason. But that's the truth. You have to just state the facts, and that it is what it is.
Yeah, and look at the size of these 2 teams, right? Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart versus Chris Boucher, Luka Garza,
Right.
Emias Queta, Tillman, right? And
Why not?
the rebounding, and I think this goes unmentioned with Jason Tatum's absence as well, is how great of a wing rebounder Jason Tatum actually was, right? And we always think about, big guys, big guys, big guys. But really, those wing players, the reason they're so versatile, the reason they're thought of as so versatile, it's not only on the defensive end of the floor, it's offensively as well, just grabbing rebounds on either end, right? And that's where the Celtics are really, really missing the presence of not only a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, and Luke Cornett in the lineup this year when we talk about the big men, but look at 2 rebounders like Drew Holiday as a guard, Jason Tatum as a forward. I mean, this is a steep drop-off we're seeing from the Celtics right now, and I think we're starting to realize it in front of our eyes as the results come in. Over the summer, there was a little bit of optimism surrounding the team that maybe they could still keep themselves in the middle of the league, and maybe they still will end up in that scenario at the end of the season. But with the Celtics sitting at 0-3 against their 3 opponents so far, each one of these games, it felt like the Celtics could have won at different moments, but didn't. And it wasn't because of, they just didn't execute to the best of their abilities, right? Anytime the team from the last 2 years, anytime they lost a game, it was, they didn't execute to the best of their abilities. Well, now it feels like a personnel thing, right? Where it just simply feels like, okay, the Celtics don't have the personnel to match up with the other team on the other end of the bench, right? You're looking at the other end of the scores table, you're going, Philadelphia, they have a little more. There are a couple more options off their bench. New York, obviously, they're built to go out and potentially win a championship this year. And then tonight against the Pistons, they're just an up and coming team. Still, they're still a rising team. They're still going to get better throughout the season, especially if they receive Jaden Ivey and a healthy status from him later on in the season. But at this moment in time, the Celtics, their 3 opponents, they could have won all 3 games. And instead, there were moments of the game and really characteristics of the team as well. I mean, Justin, you touched on it, the rebounding, the transition play is awful, but defensively too. Defensively, the team looks absolutely atrocious at really both ends right now. I mean, that's where I just don't even know where to start with all of this, right? We went from a team looking almost perfect the last 2 seasons and not really all that perfect. Let's face it, we were really in the middle portion of the season last year talking pretty negative about the Celtics. But at this point in time, both ends of the floor, defensively, at the end of the game, the point of attack, the point of pickup is so close to the bucket. I mean, if you're watching the Detroit offense, watch OKC, right? OKC, when they defend, especially Lou Dort and everybody who's defending Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, all their guards, their point of pickup is so high. It's above the 3-point line. It's almost at midcourt on some possessions. Well, the Celtics, if you look at this game, especially in that fourth quarter, and I wondered, maybe this is some first week fatigue. Guys, their lungs and their legs aren't under them yet. But at the same time, the point of pickup, I'm watching guys like Derek White, Sam Hauser. I mean, they're literally picking up guys inside the 3-point arc.
Yeah.
I mean, that's giving an offense a ton of space, and it's making it look like, it's like you're defending a team from the 80s. When we know nowadays it's a perimeter-oriented game, and the more space you give a team, the more efficient they're going to be. So the Celtics defensively did not look great, and then offensively as well. It looks like a mess on that end from the standpoint of the individualistic play, the inefficient play from what type of shots everyone's actually getting. If we're watching the play, any play develop, right? It doesn't seem smooth. When I picture Luke Cornett or Al Horford setting a screen and rolling, it's all smooth within one action, right? It's boom, boom, it's bam, bam. Well, ultimately, when I watch Keita set a screen, it feels like there's this like these weird extra movements, and then he doesn't roll at the right time, and the timing's all off. And it's really about timing. Basketball
Yeah.
is about timing,
Yeah.
rhythm, and flow. And there just seems to be a lack of flow to the Celtics offense right now that is certainly hampering their ability to put up efficient numbers that we thought maybe over the summer was going to be possible for this team because of some of the high volume scores. But those high volume scores, if they're not getting good looks, right now, all of the looks, if I'm picturing the looks on the floor, right, that specifically Pritchard, Simons, and Brown, they're getting, right, those three guys in particular, because they're more the ball handlers more than anybody else. Derek White, he plays sometimes more of an off ball role. But the three main ball handlers, Pritchard, Simons, and Brown, the type of shots they're getting feels like they're maneuvering screens, and then they're kind of coming up, meeting their help defender, or even meeting their defender on the other side of the screen, and they're taking these weird contested fall away mid range shots. I mean, that's what it feels like the offense is consisting a lot of right now, is some inefficient basketball. And we could go on and talk about both ends of the floor all day, because this is something we have not seen in quite some time. I mean, right now we're going back to 2021, going, oh, we haven't seen this in 4 years. Well, the 2021 team might have been better than this team. We might be going back a decade with
Yeah.
where this
Right.
current Celtics team's at. We might be going back to pre-Isaiah days, pre-IT days, pre-King the fourth quarter days with this team. And that's a little bit of a scary thought to think about, but with an 0-3 record right now, the bottom of the screen going across the bottom of the screen, I mean, the Celtics, they're in that conversation, unfortunately.
Because of how poorly built this roster was heading into the season. These first 3 games were lost before they even went onto the court. I mean, this personnel is 2 different puzzles mixed in one bag and trying to make one puzzle out of it together. A whole bunch of mismatching pieces and a whole bunch of people that are trying to fill roles that they aren't capable of filling. This roster was a very questionable. We knew that this roster was going to take a hit. Losing your 3 centers, I mean, that's the center of the conversation of tonight's game of whether this game was lost, was in rebounding. Wouldn't it
Yeah.
be nice to have a Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, or a Luke Cornett, and you're having the guy who is the 4th string center behind him relied on as your starting center
Primary
going
guy,
into
right.
this year? I mean, that is a issue that is going to cause this team to struggle through on, and until there's more trades and more acquisitions made, this personnel is just not going to be able to cut it. And there are going to be times that this team is going to be able to gel, and there are going to be moments for players like Hugo Gonzalez or a Josh Minot to be able to get these minutes and have some glimmers of hope. However, those are just coming from being in a very dark place with this roster. I mean, these types of opportunities are being kind of given for without any rhyme or reason to these players. I think it's more of a mix and match and throwing it at this roster at the wall and hoping something sticks. But um, I mean, there's a lot of good pieces, and figuring out what those pieces are moving forward is going to be the number one goal of these first 20 to 40 games. And it's going to be challenging, and we're going to be just it's going to be kind of one of those situations where you're just hoping to find something to pull out of it. And I'm not saying that like this roster could have been much more presented better around Jalen Brown. Expect this type of weight being put on your 3 key players alongside Anthony Simons and Peyton Pritchard and Derek White and Jalen Brown. You can't expect those guys to muster the entire weight while having complete defensive lapses at uh, with the mismatches on the other end. This is something I brought up before the season even began. Was teams are going to pick apart the mismatches on the Celtics roster and the non-versatile players like a Sam Hauser who are going to be matched up against a more athletic, a younger player, and these are the results you're going to get. I mean, you're going to face a hungry and developing Detroit Pistons, and they're going to hold this team. The Celtics showed Spurs were able to get this within a 2-point game, but it's almost down to a lack of tangibility, not a lack of heart.
I mean, I could sit here and rip into the offensive rebounding, into the defensive rebounding, and all that. I mean, you guys already touched on it, and I think you kind of hit all the key points. I think in regards to tonight's game, and really the first 3 games, because this is my first show of the season, I haven't really got to tap into how Boston has been performing, and I'm a little disappointed in the guard play, and more in particularly the creativity or lack thereof within the Celtics offense. And I hate to be the guy to start it. I do. We're 3 games in, and it's so early. Remind you the 25 game rule. However,
you need 50 games this year.
You might need 82.
I
might need all 82. I might need all 82. But like Missoula, the lack of, and we talked about, I remember having a conversation with you, Seamus, and I don't know if this was on camera or off camera. I'm sure there was a couple times on and a couple times off. We talked about it, but Missoula's kind of shown us now through 3 seasons that he's not an X's and O's guys, right? He can't really nitpick and break down a team's defense and just create this amazing offensive, from a creativity standpoint, game plan. And I think it's really starting to bleed through, because from an offensive standpoint, between Pritchard, White, Brown, and Simons, excuse me, you have more than enough offense to keep yourself in games. And again, it took 41 from Brown. We scored 113. But it's just the way it looks. It's clunky. It's isocentric. Justin, you touched on that.
Yeah, but you know why? I think and I know you're not directly blaming Missoula, but like, you're putting 2 guys next to each other that are essentially very similar, if not the same style of offensive player, in Anthony Simons and Peyton Pritchard. I hate to put this narrative out there, but I don't like when they're on the court together. I don't. I don't think. And here's the thing: they both have the capabilities of being playmakers, but they're score first guards. That's what they are. Right. They're score first guards. So something has to give. Not necessarily for both of them, maybe both of them, at least one of them, where, okay, now we have to start getting others involved, but also it also comes down to others hitting shots. And the Celtics do not have that. I do still think they're offensively talented, definitely more than defensively this year, but they don't have as much talent on the offensive end as they have had in these past 2 years. Go ahead,
That's
Rob.
Something we said, though. That's something we said coming into the season, was redundancy within the Celtics offense. And really, and Franco, you were ripping into Stevens and the Celtics about just the lack of creativity from a roster construction standpoint, right? Where it's, I mean, even you could throw Derek White in there, guys, as a guard. I mean, you have Simons, White, and Pritchard, who all need the ball in their hands to really be successful. White doesn't need to, right? When he's playing alongside Tatum, he's had a lot of success on the outside of being an offensive playmaker and being a spacer and a diver and a cutter, but he doesn't really have the luxury with that team. He kind of needs, with this team rather, he needs to have the ball in his hands to be successful. And the Boston Celtics really need White to have the ball in his hands for them to be successful. So I think offensively, and it showed tonight, you've just ran into the standstill of just redundant offensive, just high pick and roll, bad shots. They're
not getting anything going.
No,
like they're not. It's stagnant. And
you need sets. I'm sorry, but you need consistent sets. You can't do this. It almost feels like they're trying to run the killer whale offense with what they have right now. And it's like, you can't pick on the weak link.
Running the killer whale off with a whole bunch of dolphins.
Right. It's like, I'm sorry, a tuna is not going to take down a shark. It's just not it's just,
I like tuna.
A tuna could take down a lion,
folks. That will be a quote.
I don't know. I feel like it's almost like my turn, your turn. Like there's no fluidity in the offense at all. And maybe that's kind of what you're saying a little bit, but
100% honest though, Justin. Like that's been a trend now. for the running on 4 years, where it
but they've had the talent offensively before. I think it's a significant drop off
100%
to where I saw a lineup tonight, and I looked at the lineup. I'm like, okay, this is strictly defense because there is no shooting in this. It was like Jaylen Brown, Josh Minot, Hugo Gonzalez, Neemias Queta, and I forget who the other one was.
Boucher.
No, Boucher gives you shooting. It was just that you couldn't. It was no shooting, no spacing the floor. Look, I'm going to cut it straight here, fellas. We have been, and I'm not saying that this team is, I think it has the capability of being better than, what we're currently giving them credit for and what others have given them credit for in the offseason. But I'm trying to kind of sit here and with the perspective of, well, damn, fellas, we just watched one of the greatest teams ever these past 2 years. I understand they didn't win last year, and we watched 2 60+ win teams in Banner 18 being raised. In this second tax apron hits, and Seamus, you mentioned it earlier. You said, think of the drop off and think of the change that we've had. We had 19-year-old Spaniard Hugo Gonzalez start tonight in replace of Jason Tatum. That is incredible how much change. And then you really want to go to change. Peyton Pritchard gives you tremendous offense. But we talk about the defense. That's where the Celtics have struggled at mostly this season. You lose Drew Holiday's defense with Peyton Pritchard. You don't get that, right? You look at the center position. Franco, you just mentioned it. You're going from 7'3" Kristaps Porzingis, who could stretch the floor, to a 4-string center a year ago who was barely getting minutes in blowout wins. Like, he had his times, but like the amount of change that this team is going through, I'm not saying that the Celtics are going to figure it out and go on a huge winning streak and win 50 games. I'm not saying there isn't things to be done. And I'm really not trying to be the most optimistic guy ever and act like everything's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, like, I am kind of sitting here, not too sour, and realizing, okay, like, Philly, we lost by 1. We were up in that game. New York, we were up by 8 in that first quarter, looked solid, had one bad quarter. It came down to one bad quarter out of 8 in the first 2 games for both two out of 8 quarters, right? So it's not like the Celtics are getting, I think the Celtics are punching themselves in the face when it comes to their size and everything like that. And Seamus, you mentioned the timing, everything just seems off with the timing. I think once the Celtics figure that out and get I think once the Celtics get a win, it's a little breakthrough. Now, it sucks because we have the Pelicans. No, listen, hear me out.
Are we really to that point right now? When the Celtics get a win, like we are almost a week into the season and there's no win yet. Obviously, a first win is going to feel great.
I do think the Celtics get a win tomorrow. I think the Celtics feel pretty good about themselves in the way that they win. If they can get rebounds, they can keep the turnover count low. They can get in transition. Shout out to Ian. They can make their open shots. Then I think the Celtics feel really good about themselves. And who knows? I know I'm playing the big what if game 4 into the regular season, but like, this is a team that has not won a freaking game yet, guys. Once you win a game, you start to get, it's like once you see the shot, once you see the ball go through the net, you start to get comfortable. You start to, okay, maybe we got something going here. And I'm not saying that means we're going to go out and win 7 straight, because granted, we play the Pelicans tomorrow and then the freaking Cavaliers on Wednesday. Like, what a turnaround that is for us. Like, as if we're not already 0-3. But I do think I do think a good stretch can boost this team bigger than we might think. And I don't think that's such a crazy thing to say. I'm not saying meaning we're going to boost out to the first seed, Seamus. That's not what I'm saying at all.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I am not saying that you are suggesting that we're going to go on this miraculous run. I'm saying that
winning a game
right now, when you're talking, it sounds like, ooh, are we like the 14th seed, the 13th seed? Are we down in those doldrums, right? Are we down
right now? We are.
Well, literally right now, we are the 14th seed in the East, or the 15th. We're tied for the 15th. We're 0-3. The only 2 0-3 teams are the Brooklyn Nets, who lost this afternoon, and the Boston Celtics, who also lost this afternoon. But
keeping the division race close.
I do want to say something about the offense real quick. The offense, when one's watching it, well, actually, when one is comparing and contrasting, right, this particular Celtics offense to last year, I love the fact that you guys brought up It's like a killer whale offense that's attacking with a bunch of dolphins, because last year, right? And I mentioned timing as well. Last year, it was Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis working the two-man game at the top of the key. This year, it's Jaylen Brown and Neemias Queta. It's Peyton Pritchard and Xavier Tillman, right? I mean, seriously, the list goes on. You could go Anthony Simons and Luka Garza, right?
X didn't play tonight.
It's a much different world. You literally go from two top 3 players at their positions, right? And just in general, with Jason Tatum, a top 3 player in the league,
Right.
to way under that, right? We're talking about guys who are, if you were to rank them, I
Teenager.
mean, they're nowhere near those ranks. And I don't like ranking players, but to give a visual, if you were to do it like a pyramid, I mean, you have guys at the top of the pyramid like Porzingis and Tatum, and now you have guys who are in that mid tier of the pyramid. It's not the same approach on the offensive end of the floor. And what I think, if you look at the offense, what I think is really holding the Celtics back is a lot of their sets, the same IQ and how to attack the defense is not there via the ball handler, whoever it is, right? Before Jason Tatum, what made him so great is his IQ, right? Obviously, his scoring ability, his athletic ability, his basketball skill, all of those things mattered. But on top of that, what ascended him to the next level was his ability to pick apart a defense, his timing on defense, his ability to lure defenders over, lure them away from a certain side of the floor, lure them away from a certain player, and then make something happen for that player, for himself, or for somebody on that side of the floor. Well, now it feels like the approach to the offense doesn't work in the same way, right? It doesn't really work in that same way. Simons doesn't really see that. Brown doesn't see that. Pritchard doesn't see that most of the time. And this is where the whole you're an individual, you're trying to score as an individual, and the offensive narrative comes into play. Within the offense, that narrative comes into play. All of those guys, it feels like when they're coming off screens and they're going downhill, they're looking to more so get a bucket for themselves than, say, make a play for somebody else. And that's what is holding the Celtics back on the offensive end of the floor right now, along with so many other things when it comes to the general skill. But just that fact alone, when guys are attacking, they're not necessarily seeing the entire floor. They're seeing a straight line to the bucket. They're seeing an opportunity for themselves. And if that's shut off for themselves, they go and try to make that last second pass. But we've seen that so many times with teams like the Nets, the Clippers in the past. When you have a very isocentric offense, those last second passes, those are detrimental. And that's when a guy like Derek White, just want to go on this tangent real quick about Derek White. Derek White, he's not the player everybody thinks he is. All right. He's a great player to have alongside of other great players, right? He's a great complementary player, because say a guy like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're playing alongside each other as they've been their entire careers up until literally this season. When you have those two paired on one team, they're running the offense, and they're the primary and secondary options. Well, after that, you have Derek White. Derek White is not ever, when he's within that offense with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum the last 3 seasons, he's never asked to actually make a play himself. There's never a moment where we're going, Derek White, you're just running the offense for this say. You're running the offense in this moment. It's not specifically Derek White. He's working off of other players. It's, Jason Tatum. They're going to double Jason Tatum, so it's going to be swung over to White. Then he's going to run the offense. But by this time, first of all, he's on the third best defender on the other team's defending Derek White at that point in time. And then on top of that, the attention is on Tatum. The attention's on Brown. The attention is not on White. And then White, where his extra level of play comes in, is in those moments of when he gets the ball off of others' actions. He can make a play for others, or he can make a play for himself. And he's very savvy within those quick moments, right? He's not going to be somebody who's dribbling at the top of the key, and Anthony Edwards, a Luka, a Tatum, where he's going, all right, bring this guy over here. Oh, all right, okay, I got this man cutting down towards the bucket, and then I have this man shooting out towards the corner, and then, I'm going to have this pass over here because this defender's taking that man. They're going to get all switched up in the lane. Derek White is not running a play like that, right? That's the explanation here. He's not running a play in that manner. The moment Derek White gets the ball, it's kind of within the flow of the offense, right? It's more so something is already happening within the offense. Something is already flowing within the offense. He's not the one initiating the action as much as, say, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And that's where the perception of Derek White is a little mixed up within the NBA community. People say, "Oh, he's supposed to be an all-star, this, that. He's supposed to he's supposed to handle the ball a lot more." Well, ultimately, Derek White is not a player you want to be as your. You don't want Derek White as your primary ball handler or even your secondary ball handler. You want him to be more of that third, fourth guy who can take things over off the fly, right? A guy like Aaron Gordon, we see for the Nuggets, right? In the other conference. You wouldn't want Aaron Gordon manning your entire offense, but hey, if he's playing alongside Jokic and Jamal Murray, he's that third guy. He knows how to make plays within that third role. That's the same as Derek White. When you're asking him to play a bigger role, that's when things can go. I don't want to say things go awry with Derek White, but he's tasked with too much. There's too much food on his plate to actually eat. And that's basically a theme with this entire Celtics team this year.
It is. And, you can see that. And tonight's lead tracker is going to really piss me off too, because the past two games it was back and forth and then a team went on a run. But tonight, guys, you look at the lead tracker and it's like, and this is the frustrating part. It was going so well until it wasn't tonight for the Boston Celtics, or rather this afternoon for the Boston Celtics with 3:30 tip off. The Celtics led, guys, believe it or not, in that first quarter by as many as 17 points. They were out, and it looked like maybe the Celtics were going to pick up their first win in a sea of green. And then the Detroit Pistons said, "Nope, not today, Boston." And they went on the largest lead of the night, 17, and their lead went up to as many as 15 before Boston obviously trimmed that lead down to got down to 6 points there towards the end of the game, and they're not able to close it out, guys. It's early. We're 3 games in, and let's establish that before we hop into this conversation, right? But again, it feels like a reevaluation is almost necessary, right? I mean, when you're looking at this team and the construction of the roster and the play style and, maybe the trajectory and the trends in which this season might be going, are you comfortable in saying the Celtics team this year is able to be a playoff team, or would you slot them into the play-in, or are you going to go as far and say this team might not even be a top 10 seed in the Eastern Conference?
Go ahead, Franco. You were winding up there. You look like you were taking a big wind-up breath before you just unleashed.
Or is it too early? I wouldn't be mind if someone says it's too early.
I think it's too. It might be too early, but we haven't done our Eastern. We haven't had a chance to even run through what our predictions on what we think the Eastern Conference is even going to look like. I mean, we could go through the teams that we think are going to finish off better than the Boston Celtics, and that's how we find our standings within there. But just for a general consensus, I would consider this team a ceiling of a 5 seed, and then
that's pretty generous from your opinion too. Out of all the guys here, I'm surprised you were saying they could be a top 5 seed right now.
Well, that's just a more of a jab at the Eastern Conference, because it is
process
so
of
wide
elimination.
open. Yeah, because I would say there are probably 4 teams. I would say that the Knicks are better than the Celtics objectively. Cavaliers objectively are better than the Celtics right now. I would say. Then it starts to get a little bit iffy. Then you start.
I don't think it does.
I think you're leaving out a big
the
name
Magic,
right now.
The Bucks. I think all those teams are objectively better than the Celtics.
I'm telling you, I never gave my predictions. We won't get into that talk now. All I'm saying is, don't leave the Orlando Magic out. Do not leave the Orlando Magic out. Seamus, don't leave the Orlando Magic out. You can roll your eyes all you want.
We did a 2.5-hour pod with Marty the Meat Man the other night, and everybody go check that out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, by the way. That's where you can find that. Audio only, folks. No faces, but audio only.
Old school.
But I had the Orlando Magic as the 1st seed this year.
Okay, good.
I'm
with you on that one.
Yeah,
I'm a Banchero believer. I mean, we only did 10 shows on the Celtics Magic series last year when they rolled through Boston. So I feel like it was like a torch passing series, right? The Celtics, they got their last laugh against the Magic, but it was kind of like, all right, the Magic, they have an elite defense, or they have a couple of offensive characters here. Maybe if they get a guard, oh, Desmond Bain, here you go. But in the East, it's process of elimination. However, I think we're finding out, especially today, right? Today is really where the Celtics faced an opponent today and Wednesday. Those were the 2 days the Celtics faced an opponent supposedly on their level, right? Because we look back at the odds as we came into the season, right? The win totals of each team. The Celtics sat at 8th in the Eastern Conference, around 41.5, 42.5 wins, right? The Celtics sat at 8th. 7th sat the Philadelphia 76ers. All right, so the Philadelphia 76ers, they were at 7th. And just to confirm this here real quick, as I go and look at the actual numbers, but the Pistons were, let's see, they were I believe, fifth, right? Fifth. Okay, fifth. I have them all ranked league-wise. So I had to count. I'm like, I get rid of all the Western Conference teams real quick. But the Pistons were fifth. Meanwhile, the 76ers were seventh. And then, of course, the other night, the Knicks in the entire league rankings, they're fourth. And actually, let's talk about the league rankings. Coming into the season, Detroit, 45.5 win total. They're at 12. The Celtics, 42.5. They're at 16. So they're pretty close together. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're at 42.5. They were shaded towards the over, but they're at 15. So you have the Celtics at 16th. You have the Sixers at 15th. The Pistons at 12th. Okay, and then you have the Knicks at 4th. So if you look at all 3 games, the Celtics faced 2 opponents who are above them within the win totals, right? But fairly close to them, 12th and 16th. And then you have the Knicks game, they're 4th. Well, in those games, what we're looking for is, are the Celtics actually competitive with these squads? I think the returns so far are, well, the Sixers, they own some talent, but there's clearly some weird Paul George, Joel Embiid nonsense still going on there. And the Celtics only lost that game by 1 at home. All right. I think we know the Celtics and the Sixers could be fairly close together for what they got going on. Now we look at the Pistons, right? The Pistons are supposed to be this up and coming team, this still developing team. And they signed Duncan Robinson, Caires LeVert over the offseason, got rid of Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., and they'll be getting Jaden Ivey back. But tonight's game, what concerned me is down the stretch, the Pistons just looked like the more competent team. Right? If you're ranking them in terms of win totals coming into the season and just market rankings right now, well, the Pistons, if they're at 12 and the Celtics are at 16, the Pistons are going to trend up, right? The Pistons are trending up. They beat the Rockets the other night. They beat the Celtics today. They're trending up. Meanwhile, the Celtics, they're 0-3. And I sent you guys some of those advanced rankings before we came on here. Most of those advanced rankings, the Celtics are averaging somewhere in the mid-20s to even closer to the 30 mark. I mean, bottom 10 for sure, but almost close to the end of the league in some of those advanced rankings. And right now, the Celtics, they're certainly trending down from what we're seeing. And I wonder, coming into the season, say they're at 16th, right, league-wide in terms of win total. If we're reevaluating the Celtics at this point in time, are they closer to, say, 21, 22? Are teams like, say, Memphis better than Boston? Toronto? I mean, you could say Sacramento, Indiana. What about Indiana? Any of those teams? So, I mean, if you really look at the bottom.
Halliburton or no Halliburton? I mean,
well, no Halliburton.
Because the Pacers are in the same boat.
Tatum.
Actually, Tatum. No, we'll talk about it with Tatum as well in here. But just looking at it from that perspective, right? If we're just looking at the win totals coming in and where the actual teams are, you have the Celtics at 16th, the Sixers at 15th, the Pistons at 12th, and the Knicks at 4. Well, after these 3 games, the Celtics are certainly going down. And a team like the Pistons, they're going up. And I'm looking at those 2 squads going, this is a team, the Celtics, if anybody wanted to rank the Celtics amidst some of the East best teams this year, right? Because some people own optimism that the Celtics could reach as high as a 4 seed this year just because Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, they're not very established squads. They're more theoretical than actually put together. Well, I think we're coming upon a horizon where we realize, okay, and Rob, you already mentioned it, some of these teams might be clearly better than the Celtics. Like when I'm watching Cade Cunningham and Durant go to work down the stretch, go and look at the Celtics offense. I go, the Celtics have nothing like that. Right now, we do not. Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham could be a top 5 NBA player one day. I mean, he's ascending to those heights within this league. Durant could be a top 10 center for sure. I mean, he looks absolutely jacked right now. The Celtics, they're working with Cade and Brown. I mean, Cade and Brown, we're hoping they develop further within their career, but at this point in time, there's obvious flaws, right? Just within personnel. If we're just grouping together players, lineups, personnel packages, who's actually out on the floor right now, and even relevancy or relativity, actually, rather, between these teams. This game today, and even that game Friday against the Knicks, I think those were both statement games. I think these were both statement games that showed us the Celtics. I understand it's only 3 games in, but they're going to have to fight to even stay amongst those average group of teams. And I feel as if the Celtics were actually thrown into the average group of teams because the thought was, oh, well, they still have some part of their championship core, but really the championship core, it's just this carcass with no meat. There's no meat on it anymore. Thanksgiving was a week ago, folks. I mean, the turkey is done. The turkey is done. The wins. That's why every year, there's always a team. Last year was the Rockets, right? Last year, the Rockets coming into the season, nobody knew where to rank them because they were young and fun, and people knew they were going to be better, but there was no proof they were going to be better. Well, then they obviously were better, and they were the number 2 seed in the West. Well, this year, the Celtics, they're that team. People understand, oh, they're going to be worse, but we don't really know how much worse they're going to be, right? And so, well, they're 8th in the East, right? 8th highest win total. Well, that 8th could easily be 11th, 12th, 13th. I hate to raise those alarm bells right now, but that is the reality of the situation.
We're not going to be bored in March and April when it's like game 80, game 81, game 82, when we're watching each and every single game against the Charlotte on NBA TV. And
there might be big ping pong balls.
Yeah.
I'll say this, though. I will say this real quick. I do believe that this is a Celtics team that is going to get better over the course of the season because, again, this is still they're still trying to figure things out, right? Obviously, even if you were just to take Tatum out of the lineup with the exact same team last year you had to win the championship, I still think there would be a grace period where they would need to figure out how to operate without Jason Tatum, right? You can't sugarcoat that.
That was the thing that we talk about. Like Tatum will go to the bench, and we're sitting there like, oh boy, like he looks rough right now, and that was with a championship team,
right? And so for me, when you compare this team to the East, I will say there are teams that are clearly better constructed than the Boston Celtics, right? And I came on here in the last game of the preseason and I ranked Boston towards the top of tier 2 in the Eastern Conference. I would probably trend them down now to the bottom of tier 2 in the Eastern Conference.
How many tiers?
Like 4. There's about 4 tiers, and the tier 1 had about 3, tier 2 had about 3, that doesn't matter. But my main point being, there's one concerning factor. And maybe we didn't give this enough credit. I didn't give this enough credit. I really believe this big man core is that problematic to hold this Celtics team back. I mean, this is a core that you talk about no meat, Seamus, right? This big man core never had a Thanksgiving. They didn't even have the materials to at one point ever put together a meal on the table from how just putrid it is. I mean, they really are awful. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They are genuinely awful. And Franco, you sounded the alarm time and time again over the offseason. And you said it. This is not a big man.
This guy doesn't know ball. This guy doesn't know ball. I knew it.
Who is that guy? Who is that?
I don't know. There's too many people. There's the voices in my head to it. I don't know.
3 games. Take the wins where you can get them, but I will say 3 games.
3 games.
Celebrating over small sample sizes. I mean, ask the UMass faithful about that one. The football fan. Does UMass? Do they have football fans?
No,
not anymore.
They're usually passed out by 10 a.m. in the parking lot if they're going to a UMass football game.
Franco would know. But my point is that this big man core really is the bell, the alarms are sounding for me. I mean, if the Celtics are to be a playoff team, something's got to give. And I'm just talking about like, like I'm through 3 games. I mean, Durant had 24 and 17 tonight, and Jaren Durant is not he's phenomenal
like
young
prime Shaq out there,
but he looked like prime Shaq. And I know for a fact that
Jaren
Durant is not, or Jalen Durant, excuse me, is not prime Shaq. And I'm telling you what, if Durant can do this to Boston, what is Giannis going to do? What is Jokic going to do? What is Chet going to do? What is Sabonis going to do? I mean, what are these high-profile players? I know, but over the course of 82 games, those teams add up. Those losses stack up. Those 2020 games. So that, to me, is how I see it.
I could definitely, like, this center thing is just ridiculous. There was a point where I'm sitting there this afternoon, and Nimi is just getting destroyed by Durant. And I'm sitting there like, oh boy, like we have to have something. Like normally, after tonight, I'm really done addressing the past 2 years, like the past 2 teams, because there is a point in time where you got to stop comparing and move on. But last year it's like, okay, Porzingis is sucking. We go to Horford. Okay, Horford's not making shots. We go back to Porzingis, and Luke Cornett, we getting around the rim, but like we don't have that this year. So it's like Nimi's getting tossed around, and you're saying, oh boy, we need to get rebounds. And you look at the center who didn't play tonight, and it's Xavier Tillman, who I don't want to put too much hate on Xavier Tillman, because I do think he's actually shown a lot of improvement so far in his short times. I actually am really pleased with how Xavier Tillman has played so far this season. So if anything, he's probably the least center I'm worried about. But like, again, like this starting core of centers that we have, and to kind of pick and choose from, is really nothing sweet. And it really makes you wonder, not necessarily who's going to stick around, because every one of those big guys are tradable big guys. It's when are they going to be shipped out for me? I don't think all of them are getting traded this year, but I do think that the Celtics are to go after at the deadline and get a big man. Whether even if it's before the deadline, as we mentioned in December or January. I do think that's something to circle, but I also circle the backcourt. Like I circle the guard position, and Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons, and is there a playmaker we can go get out there? And we talk about the freak. I don't want to get into this freaking black hole rabbit hole here, because I can't do that on game 3, talking about trading this person, trading that, especially with the new team. So I'm not going to go down that route. I'm going to reroute.
How many games though? Over under how many games before we start talking about that?
25.
Well,
I would argue that it was 2.5, and it pushed.
I told you before the stream started, I knew I was going to fall into some kind of rabbit hole where I wasn't supposed to go down, and I pulled myself out of it. But I agree with you, Rob. This big man thing is like, you circle it, and it's like you look at Durant, and this is no disrespect to Durant, like he is a really solid big man, but like it's like we made you look like prime Shaq, prime Dwight Howard. Like you looked like I get it, it's early, but like we see Cleveland on Wednesday. If Durant was making Nimi and Chris Boucher and Josh Minot look like that, and Luka Garza look like that, what is Evan Mobley and Jared Allen gonna make Nimi look like? And remember last year,
get a rebound.
Remember last year, specifically against the Cleveland Cavaliers, when they came to Boston in the regular season, that was Nimi's worst game of the year. I believe it was the first Cleveland game. That was a really, really, really horrible game for Nimi Ishiketa. And I don't know. You try not to look ahead too much. Luckily, we're running into like DeAndre Jordan tomorrow, so hopefully the Celtics can get some rebounds tomorrow. If you're giving up rebounds to 40-year-old
we get our first
DeAndre Jordan,
reformed Zion.
Yeah, but yeah, and in terms of, I never really got to get a solid answer about the whole, where do the Celtics sit? Right now, only 3 games in. If they're to continue to play like this in terms of giving up defensive rebounds, giving up offensive rebounds, not getting back in transition, as well as the stagnant, no fluidity offense, the Celtics aren't going to find themselves in that playing picture, and I would hope they wouldn't. But what I will say is no matter how bad this gets, I personally, being a Celtics fan, will never ever root for the Celtics to lose. Now, I will root for a good opportunity in the draft lottery.
Whoa, now that's the same thing.
That's even worse.
That's
than
like I
trade talk.
won't.
Listen to me.
That
Listen
might
to
be-
me.
I would-
Like, I
I'm
won't
gonna
root
be
for a
I'm-
person's death,
no,
but I'll root
like-
for their
like,
demise.
look at
It's like,
Franco's
whoa,
face
now,
right now.
okay.
Franco's got no. Listen, Franco's got his hand on his head. I'm not going to look like that after we win a game. If we're 19-63, I'm not going to look like that if we win game 82. If we win game 82 and we have 18,
No, you're going to be right on the. You're
Oh,
going to be
everyone-
right on the same plane as
oh,
Franco
everyone give
because
me
when the
crap
Patriots
for-
beat the Bills last year,
Yeah. I would, yes.
I
We
will
ended up with
never.
Will Campbell
I will
because of
never
that.
root for my team to lose.
You
I
could have
will
ended up with
never-
Will Campbell and 2 first-round picks.
Who cares?
Right.
We still
Right.
beat the Bills.
Like, we don't have to go down that rabbit
So
hole.
that's
We don't have to go down
that's
that
where
rabbit hole.
I'm at. Some people you're hooked and listen, I don't want to hear talks about the draft lottery. The last
No,
2
no.
years, the and I've said it before, the Atlanta Hawks playing team, first overall pick. Dallas Mavericks playing team, first overall pick, ended up with Cooper Flagg, probably because they traded their franchise player 4 months before that, but still 2 playing
Mafia had
teams.
something to say about that.
Two playing teams got first round picks or first overall picks. I'm not worried about the draft lottery. If the Celtics go out and lose 60 games this year, am I going to sit here and say, oh, thank God, that means that we're guaranteed a top 5 pick? No, sadly, it doesn't. I don't want to be a Detroit. I don't want to be a Washington where you win 14 games and end up with like the friggin' 10th pick. That would suck. So
I will be a Warriors though, who took a
I-
year off with rebuilding, got a draft pick, and then
I'm okay with the
That was
Celtics
what
doing whatever they
Wiseman
need to
and-
do.
Well, here's
was
the
Wiseman.
thing.
they wound up with Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody.
Well,
We gotta be
I'm
better
just
at
letting
that.
you know because if
The
we're
actual execution of them drafting was a little.
if we're in
picks.
February, March, or April, and the Celtics have a bad record, and you guys come in here after a loss, kind of like, oh, like inch closer to a first round lottery
No, you
pick, I'm gonna
can't.
be
You
like,
can't.
hell no, we just won. Let's go. Wins are hard to
Right.
come by. Be grateful for the wins. Like that's what we're on, but that's what we're doing here. We're trying to win championships, even in game 82 when we're 45 games under 500.
Well, when those games
Right.
are, if we're in those positions and we're ending up talking about like draft picks and potentially being in that type of position when we're like debating if whether being in the play-in tournament and advancing past the play-in tournament is even worth it or not. Those
The
are when
play-in.
that's when some rough conversations are going to start to happen, and that's when you're going to start those separate the Jays conversations because there are going to be. This isn't
Oh,
a sim
wow.
year. You're not hitting the sim button, so it is not worth anything
Can
for
we
the
please?
Celtics to
Can we hit
go.
the sim button? Can we just
Well,
go past this year?
That's what
Can we
I
turn
mean.
off automatic trades though? Those hold us up.
Yep. I mean, turn off injuries. We'll turn up the sliders as well. We'll put it on rookie mode. We'll get through. But no, I mean, there are definitely repercussions if this team continues to struggle this season, and it is going to lead to either some of the larger contracts being on this team being looked at and being like, hey, they weren't able to win without Tatum. What value do they bring to this team moving forward?
Well, when you're talking about larger contracts, you're talking about Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Just
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Well-
let's just name it. Like, just tell it how it is, right? You know, those are the two big guys. Well,
And-
actually, not literally. If they were, we'd maybe be having a better conversation.
Right. Well, you mentioned draft and lottery. Well, let's talk about our guy from the draft this year, right? Hugo Gonzalez, the rookie Spaniard, got his first career start tonight. We saw him get the defensive assignment against Brunson Friday night. Did a phenomenal job as Justin whips out the jersey, the Hugo Gonzalez jersey. I saw that on your
Hugo
story
Gonzalez.
today. You were repping the Hugo. Yeah, I can respect that.
I repped it. I did my trip to Market Basket. You know how busy it gets there if you live in New England. Had to let people know who my team was and who my guy was. It's Hugo. I'm hyped about him. What's not
Well,
to be hyped about him?
Right, he had a great first career start, I'd say, in the starting lineup. He got the defensive, really the main defensive assignment against Cade Cunningham. There were a lot of times where Joe was shadowing him against Cade. He played 18 minutes, did not get a basket, but he did have 2 steals and 1 block there on the defensive end. Again, that's really where he has been shining, guys. You look at what Joe Mazzulla is doing, and you look at the Celtics kind of depth and lineups here and in what they can do. Do you think that Joe Mazzulla here is just trying things out, or do you think Ugo could be getting this starting nod? Because Hauser had it for the first 2 games. Obviously, Hauser gets sent to the bench. Ugo gets lifted up. Is this something that we could see permanent, or is he just really experimenting early into the season?
I think you could shift to both. I know that's such a cliche answer, but with how new this team is and how a lot of guys aren't really familiar with this system, I do think you could shift to both. I will say that his hard playing, you need that from the jump, and you need somebody to set the tone. And it's kind of crazy how I'm talking about setting the tone early and getting a guy who could set the tone early. I'm not talking about a veteran. I'm not talking about a 37-year-old Torrey Craig at the trade deadline. I'm talking a 19-year-old rookie. That's what I'm talking about. And he came in against New York just a couple of nights ago, and the Celtics did lose, but he helped shave a 24-point lead down to 8, and he had the main assignment down to Jalen Brunson. What?
Be careful with that wording right there. Be
What?
careful with that wording. Shave? Hugo Gonzalez shaving what? Points off the lead? Just go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
Dude, we're not turning it into that. Oh, poor
That went
Terry.
right over Justin's head. He was like, what?
No, I knew what he was talking about, but I didn't think we were going there, but we went there. But no, seriously, I think Ugo set the tone in that second half against New York. He did a terrific job. Had the main assignment on Jalen Brunson in that game. Rob, you just mentioned, had the main assignment tonight on Cade Cunningham. Made it like hell for Cade Cunningham. And you did see it came down to a science between him and Cade Cunningham tonight. Whenever Cade went to the bench, Ugo went to the bench. Whenever Cade got up, Ugo got up. And I think that tells you something there that Joe really trusts Ugo Gonzalez. And I think when you look at his game, he still has a lot to improve on both ends of the floor, but defensively, he's there. It's the offense that's going to need work. It's that shot that's going to need work. He showed in that New York game, he is very comfortable putting the ball on the floor and getting to the hoop. So I do think that shot, we talk about Joe Mazzulla's offense and sitting at the 3-point line. I think once that shot comes in, he'll feel a little bit more comfortable. But in terms of defense, he made life a living hell tonight for Cade Cunningham, and he made life in that second half a living hell for Jalen Brunson. I think that's a really encouraging sign for not only Ugo, but the Celtics team in general. He's a rookie. He's under contract. He will be here next year when Jason Tatum comes back. And I think that's an important conversation to have.
I'm just going to say something real quick. Can Joe please keep doing this? Minot, Ugo, run them, play them as much as you can. I don't need Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser's not going to listen. You know me, I was the Sam Hauser stan back when he was, playing in Maine and signed him for Virginia. Right. But like right now, Sam's not going to add 6 wins to the total. Right. But you know what could help the Celtics down the line in 2 years from now and next year and 30 games from now is this 19-year-old Spaniard getting some run. Is Josh Minott getting some run, really giving them experience. So keep this trend up. Give those guys the bulk minutes. Give them the experience. Let them get their feet wet. Hauser is not going to give you more wins this season. He could help you in spot minutes for Hauser, but I don't see a reason to play Sam Hauser right now. Ugo, Minott, they are players that I believe that should be in the rotation and should be getting their feet wet. Let them go through the trials and tribulations of the early seasons and being young and being a rookie and all that stuff. Let them go get it out now. I think they made that mistake recently because they were a championship contending team with other players like Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh. They never were able to make mistakes and get their feet wet. Let these young guys, let this young core make mistakes, let them grow, show them what they did wrong in film, all that. That's my take on it. Please, please, please keep playing them. Please.
It's important, right? Minot's 22 years old. We see him coming in.
Our age.
Yeah, he's 22 years old. Ugo's 19. Listen, I hate to use this so early in the season, but almost use this as a preseason and a glimpse into what next year could be alongside. Who would you want to put alongside Jason Tatum? I said this in the group chat. I said, boy, imagine Minot and Ugo's defense with Tatum's offense and even Tatum's defense in that longevity. Like, that is the chef's kiss. I know we have to kind of focus on the task at hand, but that is kind of the truth in kind of what we're looking forward to. Who can and will stick around next year when we have Tatum back and potentially a much significant better roster between now and then. But Ugo's been awesome. He's been consistent and he's been awesome. And he plays on second nights of back-to-back. We're going to see him tomorrow night. He's only 19 years old, fellas. So we're guaranteed to see Ugo Gonzalez. It's not like this vet comes in, we get him in the offseason. It's like, oh, well, he's not going to play tomorrow, but it was nice to see him tonight. So we're going to get to see Ugo 24 hours from now, which is important to me.
The injury report for tomorrow's game has not yet come out. And from you saying that, Justin, I am now afraid. Right? This is the whole rock bottom conversation where it's like, at least this man plays back-to-backs, and then tomorrow, questionable. Okay.
Well, no, there's no excuse. Why? This has Ugo Gonzalez written all over it. A young Pelicans team, maybe not contending out in the Western Conference. It's early in the year, second night of a back-to-back. Ugo's
no, I'm just saying, you said it was guaranteed.
I think he might be.
Not.
You know what? I am
It's not. I would hope it is.
I am. I'm Seamus guaranteeing it.
Ooh.
I would guarantee 19-year-old Ugo Gonzalez playing. Why wouldn't you guarantee that?
Because I don't want to get into specifics, but the Celtics, aren't they flying to New Orleans? Does every plane reach its destination every time? I mean, you're saying.
What the hell is your problem?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You're saying he's guaranteed, and I'm just saying. Remember that. I'm thinking back. Really, what sparked this thought is years ago there was this no days off tweet from the Celtics, and Al Horford was out there working out, and then the next day Al Horford missed the next day. He missed the next game due to rest. No days off, and then he rested, right? But that's 39 years old. That's 39-year-old Al Horford. That's not 19-year-old Ugo Gonzalez, which is your whole point. Your whole point here. But we will see Ugo Gonzalez tomorrow. And we saw a lot of him these last two games, especially that Knicks game. And tonight he started, of course. Gonzalez, to me, looks like he's going to be the next Malcolm Brogdon. He's going to be the next Derek White. He's going to be the next Drew Holiday. He's going to be the next Manu Ginobili. He's going to be the next, I'll even say it, Marcus Smart, right? And not in that way. I think he's going to be maybe a more efficient offensive player than Marcus Smart potentially in his career. Just saying. But along those lines of players, right, where he is going to be an excellent complementary player to other stars in the league. Hopefully Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in time. You never know who the Celtics, whether or not the Celtics bring in more stars or Ugo Gonzalez goes elsewhere. But regardless, Gonzalez just owns those unselfish traits to his basketball persona that I believe are going to shine through within his NBA career, and furthermore boost him in his NBA career to levels in which he can help out a championship team later on in time when he's a little more developed with more repetitions under his belt. He's only playing in his third NBA game today, right? He only played in his third NBA game. He started, but Gonzalez, you can see he's not a Shimi Ojale, right? The whole deal with Shimi Ojale was he couldn't put the ball on the floor. Gonzalez can definitely put the ball on the floor, and then on the other end of the floor, he's the most versatile defender the Celtics actually own right now because of his youth, his athleticism, his speed. All of those characteristics make him a valuable defender on the floor, and it really injects a lot of energy into the Celtics in general, because the Celtics, think about the last two seasons. I understand Justin was saying, I'm done comparing and contrasting. I'm not done comparing and contrasting, because I think the standard of championship was the last two seasons, and the Celtics they're always working towards that standard, right? The Celtics are always working towards that championship standard, and that was the championship standard. So to compare and contrast those two moments, or rather this moment and that moment, I mean, that's the standard, and this moment right now, the Celtics are trying to get back to that standard, right? But ultimately, those two teams, they were a little less athletic, right? We always said, teams like the Pacers and the Thunder, who ironically were in the finals last year. The Celtics always owned some trouble against those two teams, specifically because they played fast, they were very athletic, very youthful rosters, and the Celtics just didn't have the legs, didn't have the athleticism, didn't have the quickness to actually keep up with those types of squads. Well, now Ugo Gonzalez specifically, along with a couple of other guys, specifically Josh Minot as well, those two guys on the Celtics, Minot and Gonzalez, they are injecting youth, energy, athleticism into this team that did not exist before, even during the championship season. But now the Celtics, they own that on the defensive end of the floor. And then offensively, that's where the lapses are going to come. Gonzalez is not a developed offensive player whatsoever, nor is Josh Minot. And I feel like I'm definitely, I'm definitely going out. I'm going out there by saying Gonzalez is going to be the next Ginobili, the next Malcolm Brogdon, the next Derek White, the next
Right.
Drew Holiday, right? I'm kind of going out there because those are all, I mean,
I
arguably
would
Hall of
say
Fame
like
players.
a Cedi Osman.
I think he can be
Jenny
better.
Osmond. Where? What? What?
It's a poll.
What?
Like, I mean,
He was out of the league in like 4 years. You think Gonzalez is going to be out of the league in 4 years?
No, I think he'll stick around for. I think he'll get.
No,
at
he's not
least-
an
He's
Osmond.
talking
Okay,
he's talking prime Seti.
What, in 2018, his rookie year when he played with LeBron, his 1 year that he played with LeBron? Like Jetty Osman, how many people would know about him if he didn't play next to LeBron? I mean, that's the value of playing next to LeBron for any period of time. People just know your name, right? Right now, we're talking about Jetty Osman in 2025 when he left the league in 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. But the conversation on Hugo Gonzalez, I do believe Gonzalez is going to be quite the player for the Celtics. Right now, the value of Gonzalez is not going to be seen in its entirety because it's only 19 years old. Okay, the Celtics are not going to put trust into him all the time, whether it's defensively, offensively. Yes, there are going to be some big assignments Gonzalez is going to draw, such as a Cade Cunningham, such as a Jalen Brunson. Right now, I feel like Joe Mazzulla is actually throwing Hugo Gonzalez into the Lions' cage when he's asking Gonzalez to guard guys like Brunson and Cunningham, but those are the guys he's going to have to really match up on in time as a starter, right? If the Celtics later on in time, we mentioned, or rather you mentioned Franco, the Celtics, they could be looking at their bigger contracts, right? Oh, these guys, they don't get it done. Well, Derek White, right? He's 31. Not putting up the greatest shooting numbers right now. Looks pretty inconsistent. I kind of mentioned some of his characteristics earlier, where I'm going. He's not exactly this primary ball handler. He's a secondary. I mean, to me, he's a tertiary guy, really. But Derek White, in time, he's 31. Is Gonzalez the Derek White replacement? I hate to get into this conversation already because we talked about this a lot last year with, Baylor Shireman, is he going to take over for Hauser? And then this year, I mean, the floodgates are open for Baylor Shireman to do anything within this rotation. Right. And we haven't really seen him at all in 3 games. So I know we can go overboard on these conversations sometimes, but Gonzalez, is that the replacement for Derek White in the future when the Celtics are paying a high price for guys like Tatum and Brown? Does it get to a point where Gonzalez is almost the same value as White, and maybe he takes over White's role, and that's the next generation of the Celtics, and Gonzalez eventually does start? I think there's a roadmap for that. I think Gonzalez, I really do believe he's going to be a phenomenal player in this league. I don't see him
people lower than White first. I would
with
Hauser's in the.
Well, to me, he's already surpassed all those guys. There's nobody left. He doesn't play the same position as Pritchard in my mind. Right. Like he's not a spark plug 6th man type of a player at all. Gonzalez fits the mold of what a team wants next to specifically guys like Brown and Tatum. Brown and Tatum, I mean, we know they're more isocentric wing players who can manipulate, I mean, specifically Tatum, right? Can manipulate a defense, and it can be a little slower, but you want guys who can play off them, right? Who can make decisions off them. You want guys who are going to be unselfish, who can play an off-ball role, who are like, that's where the Simons conversation this summer, that's what it almost centered on at times is Simons going to be, he's a much different type of a guard than the Celtics have seen next to Brown and Tatum these past couple of years. Simons is more that isocentric. He plays more like Brown and Tatum than he does, say, Brogdon, Holiday, White, right? Where those are more unselfish players, more willing to get the ball out of their hands. And I think cerebrally, too, going towards the rim and
right now, more than anything else.
How a team is manipulating the floor, that matters as well. Gonzalez, There's this unselfish nature to his game. There's this quick action. It's the efficiency too, right? A dribble is time. Time is efficiency, right? If you're taking a million dribbles, you're dribble. That is less efficient than, bam, 2 dribbles. You're driving towards the rim, making a decision, making a pass, right? The Celtics want those guards next to Brown and Tatum. They want the quick decision guards, the guards that, and even the Warriors. The Warriors want that within their system too. The guards who are making quick decisions, the wings who are making quick decisions. Gonzalez strikes me as a quick decision guy. He gets the ball in his hands and he goes, boom, I'm going here and I'm doing this. I'm executing right now. There's no dribble. Oh, where am I going with this? No, he's making his move, and it's again the efficiency of the dribbling and the time. It's I'm making this move. I'm either taking it and getting a wide open layup right here because the lane is presented to me because everybody else is on that side of the floor, and when I'm getting the ball over here, here's the attacking lane. Or here's the attacking lane. I'm going to drive that aggressively. I'm being cut off. And once I'm cut off, I know this help defender's coming over here. All of a sudden, this guy's in the corner. Bam, I'm making that pass over there. Those are the type of guards. Those are the type, right, over there. Those are the type of guards that the Celtics need. They don't, that's where Pritchard and Simons, the theory of those guys sounds great, right? Ooh, they're going to come in and score. Really, you want scores like that within the skill set of your best players, such as a Jason Tatum, say with the Denver Nuggets, a Jamal Murray, right? A Cade Cunningham, where going, wow, this guy can really score in multiple ways and can really fill it up. But not only that, he's a great decision maker and he can manipulate the entirety of the floor. Well, if you don't have great decision makers and you have players who are increasingly about scoring primarily more than playmaking, it sounds great in theory. They're going to fill up the stat sheet with a bunch of points. But really, the efficiency is not there, right? Because every time we're gaining 1, the other team is gaining 1.5 in those instances. Because it's hard. That's another theme that we haven't talked about on postgame yet, but I'll bring it up. The first 3 games, what struck me about the Celtics offense compared to their opponent's offense, every single time, their opponent always looks more comfortable within their offense, and their opponent, the Celtics opponent, always looks more comfortable in actually scoring the basketball, right? At the end of the game, felt like, oh, the Celtics to get a bucket here. It's the same as the other night against the Knicks where Jaylen Brown driving in. Does he really know where he's going? No, not really. Versus, Cade Cunningham, 2-man game with Durant. Durant's just way more powerful, way bigger than all of our centers. He goes up, boom, lob, game over, right? And then on the other end too, Jalen Brunson with the Knicks. They know what they have going on. You go all the way back to Wednesday, Edgecombe and Maxey. It was in part, I thought that game was more of the Celtics defense faltering than what the Sixers were doing. The last 2 games, I thought the Pistons offense was certainly out executing the Celtics defense, and same with the Knicks. Or the Knicks and the Pistons both out executing the Celtics when it comes to offense playing the defense. Now, the Sixers playing the Celtics, I didn't think they were doing anything special. I just thought the Celtics defense looked absolutely horrid that night. But even that game, Maxey, Edgecombe, they're getting buckets at the rim. They're hitting step back threes. They're seeing a bunch of space on the floor. And that's due to part of the Celtics defense, but also the Celtics, their opponent, they always look more comfortable in actually scoring the basketball. Meanwhile, the Celtics on the other end of the floor feels like they're searching. You don't want to be a team who's searching. You want to be doing more than searching. You want to be executing and mobilizing more than strategizing when you're actually in the moment of mobilization, which is those 24 seconds on offense when you had to actually shoot the basketball. That's unfortunately where the Celtics are right now with how everything's gone up to this point.
I think the biggest thing for Ugo is there's a real opportunity here if that offensive game can develop, because again, you talk about frame, you talk about size, Seamus, those are so important. And I've always been on record about the smaller scoring guards are the most replaceable asset in the league. I mean, how many guards I can name 5 right now off the top of my head. I'm just scoring guards who really don't make an impact. Emmanuel Quickly, Cam Thomas. Maybe I can't name 5, but the list goes. The list goes on and on.
Simon, Pritchard.
So yeah, and I hate to say they don't make an impact, but in terms of
Pritchard, Zach LaVine,
and just where it's so replaceable. You can find so many of them where it, and the thing about Pritchard that makes Pritchard so valuable is that he's making $6 million, right? You can't find that, right? They really become unvaluable once you start paying them. Oh my God, my AirPod again. Once you start falling apart. Once you start paying them all that money, then it becomes a little redundant. But my point with Ugo is I think Ugo, from a defensive standpoint, from a frame, from physicality, from an athleticism, just all that stuff, he is more than NBA ready, right? He's a phenomenal defender. His timing's great. Brown talks about all the time, matching the other team's cadence. That is something that Ugo does very well. But for me, it's like, okay, this is a guy that you could potentially see as like an OG Anunoby type of player, where he is very, very solid on the defensive end of the floor, and he is able to create at times when needed, but he's a spacer. He can knock down open shots. He's a rim runner, all that stuff. He's a utility guy, really, at a phenomenal frame that gives him such an edge and such a threat. So for me, it's like Ugo's going to take time. He's not a player that, I'd feel comfortable, replacing Derek White with now, or really even in a year or two. But I do believe that he is a player, really the first player that Boston's out drafted under the Brad Stevens era, where you can look at and feel a little bit of promise about. And again, you talk about opportunity that's going to come. Those offensive, utilities and all that stuff. But I do want to touch on, and I think it's time that we touch on Jaylen Brown, guys, because Jaylen Brown now is probably the Celtics player that is needing to be answered the most questions. You obviously know that this guy has really been seen as, throughout the league in his first 9 years of his career, as a number 2. He got drafted as a third overall pick, but he came in off the bench, and then he was playing on the he started that 2018 year. They came back off the bench in 2019 in like a weird Marcus Smart decision, and then ever since it's kind of been Brown and Tatum and Brown. Tatum's not here. So Brown is now slotted into that number 1 position, the firm 1A. There is no doubt about it that he is the best player on this team. Tonight, guys, in a loss, 41 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 made threes. Brown was on one tonight. Where are we standing with Jaylen Brown and his capabilities in running this offense successfully? Can he do it? Or again, is it just too early to tell?
It's more the pieces around him. I think that Jaylen Brown is more than capable of wearing that superhero cape, being able to play that 1A, being that number 1 superstar on the court. I know he has the confidence, and he also has the capabilities of being able to produce within that role. However, if you are matching him up around the wrong types of players and not getting him as we've aligned throughout tonight's show, talking about the question marks around him, you have Derek White, who is more viewed as a tertiary player and playing as a secondary type of player, and then also have question marks on the offensive and defensive end with your guards and your centers. So it makes it very difficult for a player like Jaylen Brown to reach his full capabilities and also be able to play quarterback with this team when he doesn't have, to use the phrase quarterback, it's when when you're looking at a successful team and the a backup quarterback has to go in due to injuries or unforeseen circumstances, usually that quarterback is able to fill in and be able to utilize the pieces around what was around that starting quarterback to be able to produce either the same, if not more, than what the quarterback was capable of performing with before. You look at what Jason Tatum had to operate with last year. You had a full-fledged roster around him with rotational pieces and a starting 5 of players that were more than capable of being players that he could rely on. Now you go to Jaylen Brown, who objectively is not as talented as a player like Jason Tatum is, and you expect him to work with worse talent than Jason Tatum was working with. These are the results you're going to get. I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown, when it comes to these teams scrapping out wins, and there are going to be more throughout the season where there are going to be some tough wins against these teams that we're currently 0-3 against, like the Knicks, Cavaliers, and Detroit. Those we're gonna be able to win a few games off the pure effort and grit of and skill level of a player like Jaylen Brown, but it's being able to get those players around him and being able to find out who those rotational pieces are, the Hugo Gonzalez's, the Josh Minites, who you're going to want to keep around for a longer duration of time for when Jason Tatum comes back. You have the newly built foundation that can win with Jason Tatum on the court and without Jason Tatum on the court. And Jaylen Brown is the number one focal point of that happening.
I'm going to be brutally honest. I love Jaylen Brown. I do. And I believe that he has the ability to run the Celtics offense at a playoff rate, right? And I don't believe there's a need for us to look at Jaylen Brown as can he be our one? Can he be our one? Can he be our one? Because I believe Brown's good enough to be a one, right? And quite frankly, I don't think the Celtics need for Jaylen Brown to be a one because Tatum will be coming back. I do believe where my question and my real flaw with this arises. I love Jaylen Brown when Jaylen Brown is playing next to Jason Tatum. I think they complement each other so well. I think he's the fire to Jaylen Brown's ice. What he can do on both ends of the ball, his defensive ability with his ability to attack and get to the rim. I really don't think there's many players in the league that have that two-way capability that Jaylen Brown has. I'm going to say this, though, and I do believe this is worth something under this new CBA. When you're a rostered NBA player on the Boston Celtics and you are making $304 million and you're playing and you're active and your team isn't in contention to win an NBA championship, in this CBA, with this, how it's constructed, how teams need to build lineups, is that the best line of attack for your franchise? I believe that question needs to be looked at a little bit because as much as I love Brown, right, and I'm not, this isn't to trade Jaylen Brown alarm and this isn't all that stuff, and I'm not going to overreact, but I believe what you're going to see here, and I've been thinking about it more and more and more, is Brown's making $304 million, right? He is one of the top 5 most paid players in the league, and he's playing. And we're not sitting here thinking, yeah, the Celtics won the championship this year. Mind you, there are holes on the lineup, there's holes on the rosters, but with this CBA and how taxing it is to have players, homegrown players, really making that supermax, it makes you sit back and wonder just a little bit, is this the best route for the Celtics part 2 with Jason Tatum and Boston Celtics' second look at potentially getting back to the NBA Finals and becoming a potential perennial contender again? Is that the best path? Personally, I do believe there's a world where Brown is on this roster and there is a path, but I do believe that, that route needs to be explored a little bit because I do believe that Brown will get better, right? I think the harsh reality is, guys, though, with Jaylen Brown is we are now asking him in year 10, right, in his prime, to take on roles that he never, ever, 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 ever in his 9 prior years had to even experience and learn from and grow. I think it's really unfair and really going to be really tough for Brown to be a number 1 this year because of how different it is. It is so different. The responsibilities that Jason Tatum has on the offensive floor is much different than the responsibilities that Jaylen Brown has on has had on the offensive floors. So I think it's going to be a little ugly at first. I think he can do it. But I do believe there is a conversation to be had about whether or not the Celtics' best chance at building another roster that can contend for a title for a couple for the years that to come with Jason Tatum is that $304 million contract that Jaylen Brown holds. Can you still construct it with 2 of those puppies? And I do believe there is a conversation there.
Well, I believe the conversation is there as well because it's all about efficiency and budgeting, right? It's where are you actually getting the value from the dollars you're spending? And that's a huge question the Celtics are going to have to ask themselves if this season goes as awry as it's going right now with the Celtics sitting at 0-3. But I do compare this as well. Eras are a little incomparable, but at the same time, the era we're in is like if the 86 Celtics, right, the next year, or rather, this would be more comparable to, say, the 88 Celtics, right? Because 86, that team was great. 87, they lost the finals barely. I mean, just fell apart at the end. And then in '88, they lost in the playoffs. Well, it's like we're in 1988 right now, asking Kevin McHale to take over the reins of the Boston Celtics over Larry Bird. Right? That is exactly where we're at with this team, and maybe even an era before that, right? Because the Celtics met not as many championships up to this point, but what I do believe is a constant factor of this team, and I'll go on a tangent about Jaylen Brown here in a minute, but a constant factor that I think we're starting to see more so within the last 15 years, right? And really after the Big Three era, the franchise favors tenured players, right? Marcus Smart was arguably in Boston way longer than a player of his caliber should have ever been in one location, just simply because of I mean, what? This magic that he brought to the team and the fan base. And it was really his ability to become a character within the Celtics organization, right? In the locker room, on the court, on television, within interviews. I mean, Marcus Smart was within the Celtics organization for 9 years. A role player like him, in 9 seasons, you might see 3 different teams, right? He was with the Celtics for 9 years and he made no all-star appearances. And we look at Pritchard. And we look at the starting lineup on opening night as well, right? And Pritchard, I don't want to pick on him necessarily, but look at the starting lineup on opening night. All guys who were on the championship team, all guys who were here formally. Was there a thought of Gonzalez, Minot, Garza in the starting lineup? And I don't want to say, those guys should be starting. Even Boucher, let's throw Boucher into that conversation. Simons, thank you. Perfect. Perfect example when we're talking about all this, actually. It goes
allocating money, 27 million's on your bench.
Yeah. That's a perfect example because Simons, $27 million, we're thinking, well, in Portland, he's a primary ball handler over there. He's in their starting lineup. He was in their starting lineup for years. He should maybe take over the starting lineup duties for Pritchard, right? Or I shouldn't say Pritchard, but for Drew Holiday, Derek White, whoever, exited last year's team. But that's exemplified by the whole Simons-Pritchard dynamic. Is Pritchard more efficient than Simons? There's really not a ton of data to say yes, yet Pritchard is definitively in front of Simons within the rotation simply because of his tenure in Boston. And I wonder if that could play a factor into the Celtics building their next championship roster, right? Here are these players who won the championship in 2024. Will the Celtics be willing to make the right moves, specifically with a guy like Jaylen Brown, right? Jaylen Brown, are the Celtics going to look at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and that pairing and go, well, they won a championship in 2024. We're going to give them the right to go after it again as a duo because they're the duo that came through the first time around, right? They're the Bird and McHale. And you throw, I always thought Robert Williams was going to be the Robert Parrish, but I mean, you could throw a handful of guys in there, right? At a certain point, it was Marcus Smart. Now it's Derek White, right? So you could throw a handful of guys in there. But right now, I do question, will that favoring of tenure come into play when the Celtics, if they're even offered anything for Jaylen Brown? And I don't want to bring this up, maybe this isn't the live to bring this up on, but this summer, right? We were talking, Jaylen Brown, what kind of price tag could he demand? Could he demand the second overall pick from a team like the Spurs? I mean, that sounded a little ludicrous at the time, but could he demand a high price tag? So far through 3 games this season, you'd have to think Jaylen Brown's price tag is going down from a trade value perspective, yet his price tag from an actual what he's receiving in terms of cash value over the next 4 seasons, or really the next 2-3 seasons, it's going up, right? His cash value is going up, but his trade value is arguably going down. So the Celtics, they're going to be in a spot where they're stuck with Jaylen Brown. I hate to say that because that sounds terrible. Like, oh, they want to get rid of him. Celtics don't want to get rid of Jaylen Brown. We're way ahead of ourselves right now. But they'll get to a point where it's like the Harden deal. It's like the Embiid deal. It's like those deals that, oh, yeah, this player, he's 30 years old. He's been a star for a decade. And all the correct thing to do is pay the player, right? Oh, pay the player. But teams aren't trading for those deals, right? Teams aren't trading for Paul George, Joel Embiid. That's the extremist version, but teams aren't trading for Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and even, like, say, Kevin Durant last season, right? Teams are not trading for those guys because their contracts go way beyond what their actual I don't want to say their actual on-court value is, but what their value is within a team hierarchy trying to build out the rest of your roster. When you own players who are over that 30-year-old mark, I mean, that's when it starts to get, and Brown's not quite there. You know, he's 29. He's 29 years
Right.
old. All right. So he's not quite there, but I'll point out as well, Tatum and Brown, they're starting to become older within the league. Okay. You know, you see a lot of younger squads taking over nowadays. I mean, Houston, I mean, I understand they're led by 37-year-old Kevin Durant, but everybody else, right? Everybody else on Houston, all their young guys are our age, right? Houston, Oklahoma City, when we saw Indiana last year make a huge leap. So all of these teams, they're a little younger, more athletic. The Celtics, they're older players, and that's when they have to find other ways
Right.
to win. But I will say on Jaylen Brown, on this point, another point here, before I get up, I hand the mic over. Sorry, folks, been rambling on for the last 10 minutes. But Jaylen Brown, I don't see how this gets better. He's in his 10th NBA season.
Yeah.
I mean, are we kidding ourselves right now? Like, oh, yeah, he's going to develop into. Now, I think he's going to be a little bit better at seeing the floor and maybe adjusting in time when it comes to actually making a play out. Like, his timing is all off. Just slow down, right? Slow down. He's always so keen on just getting up the floor, and that's when he gets himself in trouble, because when he tries to get up the floor, it's like his mind and body, it's up the floor, right? It's speeding. If you were to look at this from like a, I don't know, like a bar, right? A bar that fills up. It's like his body and mind go and fill up the entire bar, while his mind fills up the entire bar. His body will fill up half the bar. That discrepancy right there is a turnover. That discrepancy right there is I'm in a situation where I now have to pass the ball at the last second. I have no idea where I'm going with this. Jaylen Brown just needs to slow down. I think he's going to get a little bit better, because I believe he's intelligent enough to look at the film and go, that's where my problem is. I have to pinpoint the problem, and now I have to execute solving the problem. I think Jaylen Brown is going to fix part of his problems. That being said, I don't see him becoming this Tatum-esque pick apart the defense. Wow, he's developed and flourished into the player we never thought he'd be. It's in his 10th season. He's 29 years old. You kind of are who you are in your 10th NBA season at age 29, even if you're asked to do things that might be above your pay grade, which that's where we started part of this conversation. Is technically it's not above Jaylen Brown's pay grade right now, what he's doing, but is his pay grade too high for his actual ability? That is where the conversation is.
And if that is the conversation, and also I can tie Derek White into this. If the conversation is to decide to move on from either Jaylen Brown or Derek White, either this season or next offseason, you need to decide that soon. And you need to decide that quick, because these players are only losing their value. Every day that ticks by that you haven't traded Jaylen Brown yet, or you haven't traded Derek White, they're only getting 1 day older and 1 day less valuable. Well, so if you want a team to look at potentially appealing to a Jaylen Brown and looking at that $55 million plus a year contract and wanting to take that on, you need to do that while Jaylen Brown still has that $55 million value, because if this season continues going the way it is, Jaylen Brown's going to be viewed at almost undervalued because of the lack of performance set around him.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna disagree with you guys a little bit on this one. I don't think Jaylen Brown's trade value is gonna go down at all this season. I think really, if anything, it is what it is, and the only direction it can go is up. I mean, he had 41 tonight, right? Like, that's not nothing. A 40-point game is that's the caliber of player Brown is. Where you look at the box score, you're like, yeah, he had 40. And there's not that many guys in the league that can go and do that. So I do think a team that there's a lot of teams right now, especially if you head out west, that are like, yeah, we could use a Jaylen Brown, because the truth is that Jaylen Brown is a player that some teams and some franchises don't get their hands on very often. I mean, he is that. I mean, this is an Eastern Conference Finals MVP. This is a Finals MVP. This is a player that is a multiple-time All-Star. He's an All-NBA player. He is a guy that is a 6'7" frame that is uber athletic. Like this, he has many tools to be just a high-volume scorer in the league. Like this is the player Jaylen Brown is. Right now, the question is does a team make a move as Brown to be their number one? Probably not, right? I mean, maybe that happens, but I look at a scenario where, and again, I don't want to say the Celtics are trading Jaylen Brown because I think that's just bonkers, but I from his outlook on the league, I believe this season can do a lot for his trade value because I do believe that you look at a player like Brown and, you know, I agree, Seamus. I think you kind of know who Jaylen Brown is now. I mean, it's unfair to ask him in year 10 to figure out all these things and these navigations that he's never had to experience before because he's never had to experience them. He was drafted to a team that was the 1 seed, and he was drafted coming off the bench, and he, you know, grew so much into this player that we know him as today. But he's in year 10. It's like, hey, you know, I know you've been doing this for 10 years. It's ridiculous. But in terms of his trade value, I do believe there's a place for Jaylen Brown to finish this season off and for teams to look at him as an all-NBA, you know, third team player, an all-NBA second team player, guy averaging, you know, 29, 6 and 4 through 82 games. There's not many guys in the league that can do that. And you know, there's not many guys because you even look at Peyton Pritchard on the Celtics, right? There is room to say Pritchard's role is maybe too big for him, where last year he was coming off the bench and all he was doing was, you know, attacking teams that weren't ready for him. And now this year, you're game planning for the Boston Celtics. Brown, White, Pritchard, those are our guys. And it's gonna look a lot different and a lot, you know, harder. It's gonna be harder for these guys because we talk about how, and it's funny because now you can kind of look, there's narratives. The NBA is probably the biggest narrative league there is in sports. For some reason. And the narrative around Jason Tatum has always been that, you know, he's carried by his super team or whatever the narrative might be. And I think the very funny thing is that what these Celtics players are experiencing, and they already knew it, but goddamn, did Jason Tatum make our lives really, really, really easy. I mean, just the attention that Jason Tatum drew from opposing teams' defenses is ridiculous. And there's maybe 2 other guys in the NBA that draw that much attention, and I think they're starting to see that. But in terms of Jaylen Brown, let's set the record straight here, and I will say this: don't expect Brown to take this leap in ascension into like top 5 status, right? I mean, in terms of manipulating the game and getting the defense to do exactly what he wants to do. That's not going to happen, right? Brown is going to be Jaylen Brown, and it's going to look a little bit different. He doesn't have the intangibles that Jason Tatum has. He doesn't have the intangibles that Nikola Jokic has. He wasn't brought up to be that player, and he's in his 10th season. So let's not focus that. Let's not even put that pressure on Jaylen Brown. What Brown needs to do this season for the Celtics is to be the best possible version. I know it sounds corny, but the best possible version of the Jaylen Brown we know. That comes with playing high-volume defense. Seamus, you are so right. Slow down. He is so much better when he is just playing at a slower pace. When he is under control, Jaylen Brown is twice the player that when he is going fast. I mean, it is. I go back and think of that 2023 Heat series. They sped Jaylen Brown up, and he was just dribbling the ball off his legs into 2 defenders, into double teams. It's just everything. So from a Jaylen Brown standpoint, slow down. Just be Jaylen Brown, right? It sounds crazy, but literally just be Jaylen Brown. You don't need to be Jason Tatum. And I do believe there's a world where it works out, and you know they figure this thing out, and he'll figure it out. But it's just going to look different. It's not going to be. He's not going to be manipulating the defense. He's just not, right? It's just not going to happen.
And it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about the offensive approach from the team in general. And this is a season where, unfortunately, right, I feel as if there's going to be a lot of revealing. Right. True. It's like, oh, here's who you really are. Right. Here's exactly who Brown really is. Here's who Joe Mazzulla is. Right. Joe Mazzulla specifically within this entire conversation, that aspect of this season, right, where Jaylen Brown, he's not Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown is not going to pick apart a defense like Jason Tatum. The Celtics are not going to be able to run the same offensive system they have in the last. Really Tatum ascended into superstardom back in, you'd say, I mean, this decade there have been multiple levels, but regardless, especially the last 4 years, right? The Celtics this year, they're going to have to run something different, right? They're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to find ways to put Anthony Simons, to put Peyton Pritchard, to put Jaylen Brown in spots of maximization to optimize their offensive output, right? Because right now, they're not optimized. They're really not. All three of them. And Brown's numbers so far have been good. Okay, I'm not denying that at all because tonight, 41-point performance. The first 2 games, he shot over 50%. I mean, he's playing phenomenal. I mean, if you look at the numbers, he's playing phenomenally from a numerical standpoint. The film, though, does not look great, right? When Twitter can go out there and create this entire montage of Jaylen Brown dribbling off his foot, the play is not always pristine. It's not always great. And that's where we're at with Jaylen Brown and the Celtics offense. But that is also where this Celtics offense, from a coaching perspective, needs a different approach. It needs a different strategy, right? We need to see more off-ball movement. We need to see, and I can't even really give anyone the answer as to what the Celtics exactly need to do. That's where part of, we're talking heads here. We're talking heads, and coaches will look at this and go, well, you say we need to change XYZ, but do you have XYZ to actually change, right? Do you have the ABC to it? I don't have the exact answer as to what the Celtics should do within this offense, but I'll tell you right now, the high screens and the methodical nature of trying to pick apart mismatches. Well, the last couple of years, that was easy because every single defender who came upon Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, there was a mismatch, right? Oh, here's the mismatch. Here's the mismatch. Just hunting mismatches all day. That was the name of the game in every single. I mean, think back to the playoffs last year, the Magic series we talked about. This is going to be a tough series because the Celtics are not going to be able to just hunt mismatches. And guess what? It was a tough series. It was a 5-game series, but the Celtics, I mean, it was a sludge fest on offense the entire time. And then we got to the Knicks series, and we went, well, this series should be a little funny looking back. That series should have been a little easier for the Celtics because, you can hunt Mitchell Robinson all day. Oh, you can hunt Jalen Brunson all day. You can just hunt these mismatches all day. The Celtics completely failed in the first 2 games, and once they did, the wheels fell off the cart. But those 2 series embody that, right? The mismatch hunting and the ability within the Celtics mismatch hunting. Now, the mismatch hunting, there aren't mismatches the Celtics can actually go out there and get. Therefore, they actually have to create something upon the basis of a little more a more eccentric offensive system that revolves around off-ball movement, screens in nefarious places, and just moving a defense, especially off ball, right? Move the defense. You can't just hunt mismatches every single time and think, oh, well, because Jaylen Brown's on this smaller guard or this guard now, oh, this guard's going to come over here. Right now, the team is not demanding. Jaylen Brown, as a primary ball handler, is not demanding the same attention as Jason Tatum when it comes to his gravity as a scorer and a playmaker, right? Teams can defend him a little more one-on-one than say
isolation looks.
Tatum, they're throwing every defensive scheme at him. They're going, oh, can we send this guy over at this time? Can we shade this defender over? Can we pre-switch this? With Brown, they're going, well, Ron Holland, we think he can defend him straight up because Brown doesn't own the same ability to go and get that mid-range jumper going, or the same way Tatum does, or he doesn't have the same ability to pull up and hit that sidestep, or he doesn't have the same ability to go and drive into his chest, bring another guy over, and then pop out and make another play. So right now, it's this moment is it's another moment right now. Last year we were kind of going through it. Like this summer we realized, oh, this team is dissipating, right? Being sent elsewhere. The championship squad is being dismantled. Now we're starting to see the actual results, and it's rough, right? Life has changed. Last year we were talking about all these luxurious, great things when revolving around the Boston Celtics. This year, I mean, there are real tactical mishaps within the Celtics system so far that I look at the win total, it's 41.5 right now. I don't know if it's going to be solved in enough time to say, oh, yeah, this team's going to be an average team in the Eastern Conference, or this team's going to reach their peak in the Eastern Conference. This Celtics team, their flaws, where they're at, even with Jaylen Brown as the efficient player he's been from a shooting perspective so far, and even from a scoring perspective, there's a lot to figure out, and it's only the third game of the season. But I mean, I feel like we could go on for 2-3 hours and talk about this because
Right.
seriously, the dissension of play from last season to this season, I cannot overstate enough, and I feel like that has become the theme of this broadcast, particularly on this evening. The first two games would be like, oh, we know the Knicks are worse than us, better than us. Sorry, force of habit from last season. We know the Knicks are better than us. Unfortunately, pains me to say. And we know the Sixers, we lost by one, kind of fluky at home, first game, blah, blah, blah. Tonight feels like the concrete is starting to settle a little bit more. Where Franco, your takes are starting to seem a little more. It's like, people were screaming at you, mediocrity. What is he talking about? Mediocrity might be kind to the Celtics this season. Kind.
That is a fair thing to say after these first three games. And quite frankly, after tonight, guys, as the Boston Celtics fall 119-113 to the Detroit Pistons. Again, guys, the Boston Celtics are going to be playing in their first back-to-back of the 2025-2026 campaign with a game tomorrow night against the New Orleans Pelicans on the road. Tip-off at that game is at 8 p.m. Eastern time, guys. After the final buzzer sounds over there, come right back here to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel. We will have you covered for the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. Guys, before we sign off, I do want to say if you're not following us or you're not subscribed to any of us on this YouTube page or any of our social medias, everything. I know, what are you doing? We're here live after every Celtics game. So hit that subscribe button and turn on the post notification so you get alerted exactly when we go live for not just any Celtics game, but for any live announcement among the league or Celtics news. Guys, we got you covered. So again, as for tonight, the Celtics fall 119-113 against the Detroit Pistons. So they fall to 0-3 on this early season, guys. Until next time, I'm Robbie. That's my man Seamus. And over there on the end is my man Nick Franco. Guys, as always, go Celtics.